Whoever you are, wherever you are, you can get involved.
European Union institutions have poured enormous resources into get-out-the-vote campaigns. But have they invested enough in stay-out-of-the-vote efforts, in ways to prevent malicious meddling? It's not like there was no warning. 5 years ago, the Kremlin's Internet Research Agency in St. Petersburg was revealed, estimated to spend more than $1 million a month pumping out anti-Western spin. 3 years ago, U.S. elections were the target of that Russian troll farm. Yet the European Commission waited until just 6 months before the European Parliament elections to launch its action plan against disinformation.
We should have been doing much more.
Jakub Kalinski spent 3 years in the European Commission's East Stratcom task force, a communications unit created in 2015 to counter Russian efforts to smear the EU. Now with an independent think tank, Kalinski says Brussels is way behind.
Expecting that we will solve the problem like in the last 2 months before the elections, or even in the last month of the elections when the Russians have been working on it for the past 5 years, I think it's very naive.
Facebook, Google, and Twitter have a role in the Commission's plan, pressed to better verify users' identities and remove fake accounts faster, and to make clear who's paying for advertising and content. Facebook has just opened its own war room in Dublin to target inauthentic activity ahead of EP elections. Lutz Güllner from the EU's External Action Service says there has been progress.
It's not as much as we would have liked to, but we have seen in terms of transparency rules, things are really moving, and I think the platforms understood that they also need to take a much closer look at what is happening there.
But not everyone is counting on bureaucrats and big tech to lead the battle. Out in the quiet Flemish countryside is what you might call an anti-troll farm with a staff of 1.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, Martin. Terry.
Hey, welcome. Step inside.
Martin Schenk debunks false online stories on his own website, leadstories.com, and also as part of Fact Check EU, a collaboration of European media outlets working to keep the record straight ahead of the elections.
Anything that looks suspicious, that we take a closer look at that, and if it smells funny, especially the kind of story that makes people angry or upset or confirms people in their bias, like I knew Muslims this or I knew Trump that.
After Schenk brands fake content with a big red banner on his website, he also formally notifies Facebook, which immediately reduces the item's visibility in its news feeds. Schenk is convinced even small doses of disinformation can be dangerous for democracy.
If you can swing a few hundred votes in a certain district or in a certain state, that might tip the balance, and you cannot make this coalition or that coalition because one seat has moved. So it will undoubtedly have an influence.
With so much at stake across 28 countries, experts say we're likely to see intense disinformation campaigns right up till the final votes are cast.
Let's bring in the correspondent now who put that report together for us, Terry Schultz. Good morning, Terry. Terry, can you tell us what's the Kremlin's end game in this? What does it want to achieve with its disinformation campaigns?
What the Kremlin wants is for voters to be confused. It doesn't necessarily need to convince them of anything in particular, simply to make them doubt their leaders, doubt their media, doubt each other even, and to not know exactly what their future might hold. And in that situation, the Kremlin thinks perhaps they'll be more likely to install authoritarian leaders who say they'll keep them safe and may be more amenable to the kind of tactics that Moscow likes. And remember, at EU level, it only takes one vote in many cases to block things like sanctions or energy projects. So as Martin Schenk explained, I mean, sometimes all you need is a few hundred votes swayed this way or that way to make a really big difference. But to be fair, it's not only Moscow doing this. Big hacking campaigns have been traced back to Iran, to China, to North Korea. And of course, extremists in Europe and the United States are all using exactly the same playbook. It's just that we happen to know perhaps the most about the Russian efforts because they were so successful in the 2016 U.S. election and in the Brexit campaign as well.
Okay, Terry, your report points to the powerful internet players Facebook and Google being enlisted in the effort to prevent foreign political meddling. But there are plenty of reasons to ask if Silicon Valley corporations are the right partners for Europe to help protect the integrity of its elections.
Sure, there's a lot of discomfort about who would decide what stays up and what gets taken down, what's a lie and what's the truth. And nobody really wants Google or Facebook to be making that kind of decision about political content. But you cannot do this without them. And that has certainly been proven by the fact that there are millions and millions of fake accounts floating out there who are reaching just untold numbers of voters. And so what has been done is that the big platforms, the social media giants, have signed a code of conduct with the European Commission that says they're going to be more proactive about taking down fake content, about making sure they know who paid for ads, who paid for articles, and importantly, they need to change the way they put fake stories in their algorithm. So if you've got a fact checker saying that they've proven a story is false, then Facebook, in working with some of these consortiums, will then drop that story down. So it makes it more difficult for people to see the fake content and make it go viral. And hopefully that's having an impact.
Terry Schultz for us from Brussels. Thanks so much, Terry, for your report, for coming in this morning and checking out all of this for us.